President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, European Commissioner for Agriculture, Janusz Wojcikovsky, esteemed speakers, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and a very, very warm welcome to the 2020 edition of the EU Agricultural Outlook, Next Generation EU Agriculture from COVID-19 Crisis to Green Recovery. Now, this headline event has been organised by the European Commission since 2014, but of course this sixth edition is the first time that you are all joining together online. Today and tomorrow, in a series of plenary and parallel sessions, we are going to pinpoint and reflect upon some of the lessons learned from the COVID-19 crisis and, importantly, look at the various pathways ahead to a green recovery. The conference also presents an ideal platform to share the results of the foresight study, Farmers of the Future. Now, before I go any further, I'd like to remind you that we do have interpretation in the plenary and parallel sessions, and in the plenary sessions in 7 languages. So do make sure that you are set up to listen and to interact in the language of your choice. I'm Katrina Sickle. I'm a broadcaster and moderator, and it's my privilege to be your master of ceremonies and also one of 4 moderators to navigate you through this very content-rich 2-day event. Now, we're based here at the Charlemagne building in Brussels, but I have to tell you, I can almost feel the vibes of the almost 1,500 participants who are joining from the live stream from many, many countries, actually, at the last count, 64. So thank you so much for turning up and tuning in at the end of a very busy and challenging year. Not least because, of course, headlining today, we have the President of the European Commission. Now, the advantage of an online conference for you is that you can customize it. There are different ways to network, new ways to network. The platform enables you, of course, to set up one-on-one meetings throughout the conference and to take part in special networking forums between 6 and 7 o'clock tonight. And of course, something that's really special about this online event is the 3D virtual gallery, because that's the place that brings some of the thematic issues to life, which we will discuss in the course of the next 2 days. You've got the first room of the gallery where there's the Outlook report, the second that helps you understand how exactly the EU has supported the agri-food sector during the crisis. The third focuses on green recovery, and the fourth is dedicated to farmers of the future, revealing, as I said, the results of a foresight study on what European farming could look like in 2040. So please do take the time to browse that gallery on both days, because what's great is that it will be updated with materials and videos throughout the course of the conference. And of course, the platform also enables your voice to be heard in various sessions via Slido. Today it's very, very simple. You just have to click on day 1 and you can use the tool in all of the sessions except this opening one. And of course, you can be vocal at any time you like, positively, please, on Twitter, #AgriOutlook. So, that's all of the housekeeping preamble, ladies and gentlemen. Before I hand over to the first of our opening speakers, let me give you the briefest of reminders of the unique context for this 2020 edition. Now, it's been a testing year. It doesn't need me to tell you that, both for the single market and, of course, for the food chain, but has met the challenge of providing food against a backdrop of crisis measures and lockdowns. At the same time, the farm to fork and the biodiversity strategies have, of course, been adopted, and these give a really clear path ahead for a more sustainable agri-food sector. So that will bring challenges along the way, but really positive challenges, and we'll discuss some of those in the course of the event. And of course, negotiations of the future CAP have also begun in earnest. Those are just the top lines. Now, to amplify the context, to outline the relevance of the Green Deal and the CAP as growth strategies, and to lay out particularly the support to farmers under the next budget and share her views on the relationship between the agri-food sector and, of course, climate demands, I would like to ask you to give a very, very warm welcome from behind your screens to the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Und liebe Frau Bundeslandwirtschaftsministerin, liebe Julia, dear Commissioner Janusz Wojcikovsky, dear members of the European Parliament, lieber Norbert Linz, ladies and gentlemen. Well, you may still remember the pictures from the first days of the corona crisis. The long queues in front of shops, the photos of empty supermarket shelves on social media, and people in the evening news saying they were afraid that food supply would be disrupted in the pandemic. Today we know these fears were unfounded. All shelves were quickly restocked. Thanks to our farmers and many other actors in the food supply chain, there were no serious food shortages anywhere in Europe. However, I know the pandemic is a trying time for our farmers and their families. There is no home office for farmers. They're used to roll up their sleeves and get down to work, and this is what they did once again in this crisis. As local markets and restaurants closed, farmers sold their products via the internet or delivered them for free. And when harvest workers from abroad couldn't make it to their jobs due to travel restrictions, local volunteers filled the gap. Thus, our farmers became a symbol of resilience. And for this, I would like to say a heartfelt thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, our meeting couldn't come to a more crucial time for Europe. The pandemic is far from over and big parts of our continent are in lockdown. But beyond COVID-19, another crisis looms, which will continue for a very long time. Global warming, the crisis of our planet. And this is what I want to discuss with you at this key annual EU Agricultural Outlook Conference. A lot is at stake for farmers. Their ability to work the land and provide healthy food is increasingly threatened, not just by volatile markets, but also by the effects of climate change, by environmental degradation of the land, and by the loss of biodiversity. The business of farmers depends on these natural resources. And for farmers fighting climate change and protecting the environment, this essentially means protecting the future of their own livelihood. And that is also why the COVID-19 pandemic cannot be a reason to pause in protecting our nature. A lot is at stake as well for European citizens. What we do, the policies we create together, strongly affect the food we will all get on our plates, its safety, its quality, and its sustainability. And a lot is at stake for our nature and our planet. And farmers have indeed a huge role in protecting nature, fighting climate change, and preserving biodiversity and our beautiful European landscapes. Europe is a pioneer in the fight against climate change. By 2050, Europe wants to become the first climate-neutral continent in the world. And already by 2030, we want to reduce our CO2 emissions by at least 55%. And European farmers don't need to be convinced that this European Green Deal is the right way forward. Their livelihood depends on natural resources. They are first-hand witnesses of climate change. They know why action is needed. And today, volatile weather conditions are as risky for farmers as volatile markets. Droughts and floods have hit more frequently and violently over the last years, all too often destroying parts or the entire harvests. And this is just the beginning, as we all know. That is why a reformed, future-oriented European agricultural policy is a core element of the European Green Deal. A policy that helps farmers in the transition and that rewards farmers for protecting climate and nature while securing food security, as well as your competitiveness and livelihoods. And of course, I know that many farmers already engage in organic farming, as the total area under organic farming is steadily increasing. And many already implement environmental and climate-related practices. They increased production while reducing emissions of, for example, greenhouse gases, ammonia, or phosphates. That's good. However, as the Farm to Fork and biodiversity strategies point out, we need to do more. By 2030, we need, for instance, to reduce substantially the use and the risk of chemical pesticides and the use of more hazardous ones. We need to reduce nutrient losses while ensuring no deterioration of soil fertility. And we need to reduce the sales of antimicrobials for farmed animals and in aquaculture. And I tell you, as a medical doctor by training, I know of the enormous risks of growing antibiotic resistance. We should achieve 25% of total farmland under organic farming, and we should increase substantially biodiversity-rich landscapes features on agricultural land. The good news is, our farmers have always been at the forefront when Europe had to overcome common challenges. Since the creation in 1962, the CAP's guiding principles were to ensure that people had enough food at affordable prices, and that all farmers would earn a decent living, small family farmers as well as large-scale farms. And let me be very, very clear here. These objectives are no relics from a faraway time. They are as vital today as always. Now, once again, the CAP is right at the center to achieve important goals for our Union. It will be instrumental in the transition to sustainable food production. And it will empower farmers to lead the fight against climate change. To achieve this, the Commission wants to reward those farmers who are ambitious in the fight against climate change. They should know, if you choose to go green and digital, it will pay off. More and more consumers are interested in the quality of what they eat and how it is produced. By what they buy, they also show us which agricultural model they support. Well, just look at the last Eurobarometer survey. 9 out of 10 Europeans believe that sustainability should be an important priority for Europe's agricultural policy. Consumers are more and more ready to pay a fair price for healthy and for tasty food. This idea underpins our Farm to Fork and our biodiversity strategies. I know that some farmers worry about additional bureaucracy and other impediments, especially now in these trying times. But our strategies are not about new burdens. They are about new opportunities. We want to protect our environment and create new business opportunities for our farmers. And ladies and gentlemen, our farmers live in the heart of our societies. They are central for achieving our climate goals. But they are not the only ones who have to adapt. The fight against climate change calls for action for all actors in the agri-food value chain. Next year, we will be presenting our governance framework for the food industry. And we are launching initiatives on labeling to help consumers make healthy and sustainable choices. We also work with member states. They know their rural communities best. This is why we now invite member states to come up with their CAP strategic plans. With these plans, member states should tell us how they want to make best use of the resources of the CAP. And at the same time, we want to know how they are going to achieve the objectives of the European Green Deal. In the next days, the Commission will send out recommendations to help member states preparing these plans, because only together we can deliver on our environmental ambitions. We know all that. And this is where Europe puts additional resources on the table. Research and innovation will contribute to improve agriculture, food production, and the protection of our environment. 10 billion euros are foreseen for new projects in Horizon Europe. And on top, there is our recovery package, Next Generation EU, worth 750 billion euros. With this money, we do not only want to combat the economic consequences of the crisis, but build forward better. We want to create a more sustainable, a more digital, and a more resilient Europe. And Next Generation EU is also for the recovery plan for not only our member states, but also for our farmers. So Parliament, Council, and Commission have just reached an agreement. We have reached the agreement to allocate 8 billion euro of Next Generation EU to farming and to rural communities. I think this is good news. This is why the European Commission is determined to play its full role in the trilogue negotiations. As a driving force for greater sustainability and as guardian of the green ambition for the CAP, we are confident the current proposal can deliver. For this purpose, we can build on the good elements in the European Parliament and Council positions. For instance, both Parliament and Council have confirmed the mandatory nature of eco-schemes. And they have earmarked significant budgets for those schemes. And they have also maintained the principles of no backsliding and of an explicit link between the CAP strategic plans and certain EU laws on environment and climate. At the same time, certain aspects of the Parliament and Council positions raise doubts on the capacity of the CAP to deliver on environment and climate. They show the challenge ahead of us in the course of the trilogues. The European Commission will deploy all efforts in these negotiations. You can count on us to push for sustainable agriculture that respects nature. That's what we want, all of us. And that allows farmers to earn a fair living by producing healthy and tasty products that are affordable for our citizens. The European Commission will aim to maximize CAP spending for climate-friendly practices. We will ensure ambitious eco-schemes that reward those who invest into regenerative farming. Honestly, I prefer a CAP that pays farmers to take good care of our land now, with conditions that may be perceived perhaps as difficult and tough. But instead of having to come later with environmental regulations that remedy the damage then done to our nature. So I am convinced that we can have it all. Save incomes for the farmers of Europe, a thriving nature that secures their livelihood and protects against climate disaster, and securing sufficient, safe, and healthy food. I wish you a good Congress, a good meeting, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so very much. And that was so very clear and so very, very comprehensive. And everybody knows, I think, that they are indeed at the right event. If I can just pick out one thing that you said right at the start, which made me feel particularly encouraged, was that relationship that you said that the farmers had continued to forge with the very unsettled consumer this year. You mentioned, new avenues that were digital, volunteers, even providing free food. And that led you to really feel positive and to encourage and thank them for being a symbol of resilience and talking a little bit about that history there. And I also thank you very much for underlining what is very important as one of the messages, the link between protecting livelihoods, their own livelihoods, and the planet. So thank you. I know you have a very busy schedule, but you have done a lovely, very eloquent job of headlining this 2-day conference. So I thank you very much, and I give you leave to get on with the rest of your day. Thank you very much, the President of the Commission. So, time, ladies and gentlemen, is of the essence. I'm going to move now on to the next of our 4 opening speakers. This gentleman will be joining me. Here he is. It is, of course, the EU Commissioner for Agriculture, Janusz Wojcikovsky. And I have the great privilege of being able to engage this gentleman happily, thank you very, very much, in a short chat. So it's lovely to have you with us. Now, we are talking very much about this journey from the crisis, which is not over, as we all know, and the President of the Commission underlined, towards the green recovery. And we are going to turn to the future CAP and the future in general. But before I go to the future, I'd like to get a few little insights, if you're happy to share them with us, of your first year in office.
Thank you very much. And maybe before my answer to your question, I'd like to welcome all the participants to this 6th edition of the Agriculture Outlook Conference. And thank you very much for Madam President von der Leyen for your kind words of support to the farming community. And first of all, for your action supporting farming community. As a commissioner for agriculture, I always can count for your understanding of the needs of farmers and for your support our initiatives to solve the problems in agriculture, especially during the pandemic crisis. Thank you very much for that. Thank you also for Julia Klickner and Norbert Linz, the German presidency, and the chairman of the Agriculture Committee in European Parliament for your presence, participation in this conference. The Outlook conference of last year was one of my first events of being the commissioner of agriculture. We meet in person, the room was full at that time. On 1 year on, we have a very different situation, but there is one positive side of having the conference online, that we are able to invite more participants than usual. But now coming back to your question, my first year in office, this year has been mainly characterized by 3 things. Firstly, dealing with COVID-19 pandemic, which has affected all of us, all sectors of our economy, and of course, it affected European agriculture. I have to, following the Madam President, thanks to our farmers, I have to give a big thank you to our farmers and those employed in the broad agri-food sector for having ensured our food security during this difficult time, and task that also required active support from the European Commission. The European Commission introduced measures supporting farmers and the agri-food sector in the context of the crisis. The guidelines facilitated the movement of agricultural products and seasonal workers at the crucial time and kept borders open. the so-called green lanes allowed for the transport of food and animals, while agricultural workers were given priority for crossing the borders. In addition, market-related interventions followed, such as support for private storage of beef and cheese. Measures were also taken in the wine sector, and the decision was taken allowing member states to increase public funding for farmers and agricultural entrepreneurs. We also introduced a possibility to transfer a proportion of unused rural development funds to assist farmers affected by the impact of the pandemic. Those measures offered important support during the crisis and were welcomed by our farmers. I'd like to thank our partners and agriculture organizations for good, inspiring cooperation in the preparation and implementation of those crisis instruments. I'd like also to thank to the European Parliament for their good cooperation and for efficiently handling crucial legislative amendments, facilitating the provision of assistance. The second important matter is achieving a considerable increase in the draft Common Agricultural Policy budget for 2021-2027. I remember our conference last year. At that time I said that my task would be to defend the draft budget proposed in 2018. And I would be defending the budget against a decrease, but not against an increase. In May 2020, the Commission proposed to increase the CAP budget by 26 billion euro from 365 to 391 billion euro. At the July summit, finally approved the quota 387 billion, which exceeds the 2018 proposal by 22 billion. The initiative displayed by the Commission with regards to increase the budget shows that the Madam von der Leyen Commission appreciates the importance and relevance of agriculture and is aware of how great the needs of the sector are. And the third thing is the continued reform of the CAP, enriched by aspects of the Green Deal and by elements of the farm to forks and biodiversity strategies. There has been considerable concern regarding the reform chances of success, with extreme views expressed. Some find it lacking in ambition. Others believe it is too ambitious and threat to food security. Meanwhile, we have been making progress and trialogue negotiations are already underway. I am optimistic that together with the Parliament and the Council, we will make our agriculture more friendly towards the environment, climate, and animal welfare, and our agricultural policy more friendly to farmers, while strengthening the food security of our citizens and the economic security of our farmers. To sum up with regard to my first year, it would like to highlight three substantial achievements. The first, effective crisis management during the pandemic. The second, increase the future budget of the Common Agricultural Policy. And the third, substantial progress made with regard to the implementation of the Common Agricultural Policy, taking account of the Green Deal aspects. An additional reflection: when we met at this conference a year ago, we had uncertainties and concerns about the key issues regarding the future Common Agricultural Policy. There was no decision on the multi-annual financial framework, And at the same time, the proposal with the heavily reduced budget for the next 7 years was valid. We have uncertainty over the course of the CAP reform and the transition period. Today, we have the MFF, including the CAP budget increased by the 22 billion euro and transitional regulation that satisfies farmers, and we have significant progress in the reform of the CAP. About the transition regulation, this is good news from the today morning, because today morning the European Parliament adopted the transition regulation, which is very important for stable planning of our farmers for their future. They are the most important thing, answering for your question.
Thank you so very much. And thank you so very much. And when I asked you the question, I'm being a little bit funny, amusing here, I thought, oh, he's going to tell me a little bit when he has a meeting, when he just has a bit of a break for coffee to think about the portfolio. No, you had an absolute baptism of fire. And I think it's really important to hear some of those concrete measures that kept the show on the road and kept people, the consumer, who we heard from the president were very, very unsettled, but kept the food on their plate. So thank you so much. You really didn't have a tremendous amount of time to get settled in this year. And now I'm going to ask you not about this year, but actually about the future, because that is, of course, one of the key areas of discussion for our conference and the main theme. We're looking at EU Next Generation Agriculture. So in a nutshell, how do you foresee, how do you envisage the future CAP supporting and accompanying that next generation of farmers?
This is the question about the young farmers. This is the key issue. What we can propose to encourage young people to be farmers. I was in my previous job as a member of the European Court of Auditors. I was responsible for the audit about the generational renewal in European agriculture, and I know well how important, how difficult situation we have across the Europe. There are some member states in the almost half population of the farmers, they are over 65 years, but in one member state there is more than 50% farmers who are over 65. The problem, the lack of generational renewal, is a big challenge for us. And what we can do for this, first of all, the existing CAP instrument to support young farmers under the first and second pillars will be continued and developed, which also reflected in our recommendations to member states regarding their CAP national strategic plans. But the key to improving the situation for young farmers is not only the common agricultural policy. This is very important. More generally, we need to make rural areas more attractive and vibrant living places. And this is the challenge for all policies, and in particular, those also providing financial support to rural areas are foreseen in the treaty, such as the cohesion policy, but also new instrument under the next generation EU funds. We need to ensure that in the forthcoming programming period, this instrument dedicate substantial funds also to rural areas. I know that this largely depends on a political decision taken in the member states. However, in my dialogue with member states over their strategic plans, I will be encouraging them to offer more support to rural areas from these other funding sources. This will contribute to the improvement of living conditions in rural areas. Then it will be easier to encourage young people to take up farming. For instance, this is the issue of the Transport exclusion in many rural areas, which are not always served by public transport, hampering access to education, medical services, culture, etc. And of course, there is issue of digitalization. There is some urgent catching up to do here, as many rural areas are excluded from IT infrastructure, which poses a considerable obstacle to day-to-day activities as well as to agriculture work. This is where we want to achieve the progress rapidly. This is also a key element of the long-term vision for rural development that we are intensively working on and which has recently been the subject of public consultation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much there. I'm going to say thank you again because I'm not sure when my microphone comes on. Very interesting and so important that you should underline there that farming and farmers really are within that rural development context, and by that I mean contributing so fundamentally to the social fabric of those areas. Now, I'm just going to stick with that farmers of the future a little bit, push a little bit on that for a last question for you, if I may. I did mention at the outset that we're going to share the results of this foresight study, and it tries to identify the professional roles of future farmers in 2040 and look at the potential gaps in policy and how that gap could be closed. So do you have maybe a couple of insights for us on how you see farmers of the future?
Thank you very much for this question. The study we present today on the farmers of the future clearly indicates that farming is very diverse. I do not believe in a single model of a farmer, as agriculture is diverse and should remain so, offering space for various types of holdings and agricultural activities. Our farmers, therefore, need to be diverse. So I'd rather talk about the future of the farmers than about the farmers of the future. First of all, their future must be secure in the economic sense. Our farmers ensure our food security, and our agriculture policy should ensure their economic security. One of the ways to strengthen agriculture economically and to improve its crisis resistance is to encourage agriculture to be more focused on local markets and short supply chains. This is one of the major objectives of the Farm to Fork strategy. The ongoing agriculture production race has made farmers too dependent on external supplies and external markets. We see this, for instance, in certain animal production sector, the existence of which is dependent on the import of fodder and on the export of their products to distant markets. Naturally, we will continue to promote export and strengthen the position of the European agriculture on the global markets. However, at the same time, we will be encouraging farmers, processors, and food traders to contribute to the short supply chain system. That should be a key instrument to improve the crisis resistance of European agriculture. We are planning a range of measures to further promote European Union food on the EU market, such as strengthening the system of geographical indications stating the origin of food products and the envisaged animal welfare label. About this question, this is very positive news that the German presidency initiative adopted by the Council last meeting yesterday to introduce the animal welfare labeling, European harmonized system of animal welfare labeling. This is, in my point of view, the Commission supported very much this idea. We are preparing the legislative proposal for this animal welfare label. This is very important action for the better promotion of the European agriculture products, improvement of animal welfare standard, of course, but to also to promote European food produced with high animal welfare standard. This is a very sensitive question for our citizens, and I'm happy that we we are improving significantly the animal welfare standards by the many instruments, the conditionality, eco schemes in the first pillar, animal welfare measures in the second pillar, but also by the animal welfare label. I'd like to, in particular, underline the importance of our promotion actions carried out around the globe with a view to promoting high-quality European Union food products and beverages registered as geographical indications. Of course, we are taking steps to ensure their high level of legal protection. By doing this, we want to ensure that EU geographical indications are not counterfeited, which is important not only in order to protect their worldwide sales, but also to ensure a development of rural areas where those products are produced. As you well know, this objective is mainly achieved through a network of free trade agreements, which the EU signed with many countries around the world. This protection should also be extended to new markets by negotiating free trade agreements, among others, with Australia, New Zealand, Chile, and Mercosur. Finally speaking, that I'm optimistic about the future of the European agriculture, but I fully share the Madam President von der Leyen opinion that the Green Deal, the strategy, Farm to Fork strategy, and the biodiversity strategy, this is the big chance for European agriculture. This is first of all chance to stop the process of disappearing of the small and medium-sized farms. We need to stop this process. We need to give chance for them to exist on the agricultural system in European Union, and should be place for them to continue their farming. Green Deal is big chance to improve their situation. And I think that we are ready to make our agriculture more friendly for environment, for climate, for animal welfare, but also to create agriculture policy more friendly for farmers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if the audience is hearing me thank you twice, I'm just waiting to see myself on screen to know that you've heard me. Thank you. It is so true that we could chat for days and days and days, unpacking all of those issues that you just laid out there very, very helpfully. Time is of the essence, so I am now going to release you. I thank you very, very much for joining us at the outset of this two-day event, and I will let you continue, hopefully to listen in or to continue with any other engagements you may have. Thank you and very, very good luck. I hope that you will have less of a roller coaster year next year. Thank you. So we now have, ladies and gentlemen, two further opening addresses, and these are brought to you by video, so don't go away. They are the two further addresses that will complete this opening session. We're going to hear first from the German Federal Minister for Food and Agriculture, who will, of course, reflect in German upon the achievements of the 6 months of the Council presidency and also on the general approach agreed by the Council on the CAP. So let's take a look at that video. Thank you.
President Ursula von der Leyen, Commissioner Janusz Wojcikovsky, Chair Norbert Linz, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, everyone. The turn of the year is approaching, and with it, the end of the German EU Council presidency. Luckily, we do not need a crystal ball to take a look at the coming year. Instead, we have formats for this, such as the well-established EU Agricultural Outlook Conference. Thank you for your invitation. The year 2020 has shown us that no matter how careful we prepare forecasts, they can become obsolete overnight. But there are also certainties that are reinforced by crises. The coronavirus pandemic has taught us one thing: agriculture and free trade are of fundamental importance. They will continue to play a key role on the European internal market in terms of safeguarding our food supply. They are of systemic importance. During our presidency of the Council, we have set the course for making the agri-food sector even more resilient to crises. The new CAP will help ensure that the agri-food sector is socially accepted, competitive and protects resources, all at the same time. We are providing planning certainty, we are providing economic prospects, and we have succeeded in interlinking food and income security more closely with climate action and environmental protection. When it comes to the direct payments, one of my main concerns was to achieve binding minimum budget for eco-schemes, but we did. They comprised 20% of the funding under the first pillar. This minimum budget will apply equally to each of the 27 member states. This specific figure goes far beyond the suggestions made by the EU Commission, and it promotes greater species diversity, environmental protection and climate action. The new CAP, the Green Deal and the Farm to Fork strategy do not contradict each other. They must be seen together as one. And there's one thing that we must achieve. We must ensure that European agricultural policy is designed so that farmers can continue working successfully. This is why today I'm again asking the Commission to conduct impact assessments on the Farm to Fork strategy. Everyone involved, especially our farmers, must be able to implement the measures on the ground. Our agricultural sector, indeed our entire sustainable food system, must remain competitive. We must provide subsequent generations with a properly tilled field. Properly tilled in terms of greater sustainability, but also in terms of greater fairness and competitive equity within the EU. The Outlook Conference provides important impetus for these tasks. This is why I'm particularly looking forward to the presentation of the study Farmers of the Future, as well as the market outlooks tomorrow. I wish you all a successful conference, rich in exchange and new insights, despite the pandemic. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much to the Minister there. And again, just underlining always the role of farmers, the importance for them. And I quote there, continuing to be able to work successfully. And then we had a lot of other elements there that will be under discussion in our conference. Socially acceptable, the way forward, competitive, protecting resources, and of course, ensuring fairness. So we're now coming to the last of our opening speakers, who is also joining by video. Our last speaker of this opening session is MEP and Chair of the Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development, Norbert Linz. And so obviously he is here to present the view of the European Parliament on the CAP negotiations and on the Green Deal. So listen with care. Thank you.
Dear President, dear Commissioner, dear Minister, ladies and gentlemen. How will the future of EU agriculture look like? How do we keep farming attractive for the next generation's farmers? What does the next generation in the EU expect from the future policy? These questions will be at the center of today's conference. And we are shaping this future right now in the ongoing trilogue negotiations. I would like to thank Minister Julia Klöckner for the work of the German presidency the last 6 months and the progress we made in the trilogue negotiations. But what do we want from Parliament side? First and foremost, it is our aim to secure healthy, nutritious, good and affordable food for all Europeans. This means that we need to guarantee income stability and attractive conditions for our farmers. A viable farming community is essential for thriving rural areas. We need to make the farming profession attractive for young people and thus ensure the survival of the sector. Secondly, the new CAP needs to meet the environmental and climate challenges. The Parliament supports the Green Deal objectives. It is clear that we need changes in farming practices and systems to reduce agricultural greenhouse gas emissions and save biodiversity, which is why the Parliament's CAP position is a lot more ambitious than what the Commission has proposed in 2018. However, science shows that it will not be easy to achieve the climate and environmental targets of the Green Deal while ensuring food security, providing a reasonable standard of living for farmers and contributing to vibrant rural communities. In order to avoid that the achievement of the Green Deal objectives leads to a substantial drop in farm incomes, it is important that sufficient funding be allocated to the CAP in future budget. In that context, I welcome the agreement on the European Recovery Instrument, which will lead to a top-up of the European Agriculture Fund for Rural Development by 8 billion euros in the years 2021 and 2022. Parliament and Council have agreed to effectively make that money available in the years 2021 and 2022, when it will be needed most. We also need to make sure that there is enough funding in future MFFs. Given the complexity of the issue and sometimes opposing interests at stake, it will not be easy to strike the right balance. However, I'm confident that eventually we will succeed in finding solutions that will be acceptable to all stakeholders, showing the strong commitment to environmental and climate targets that society is expecting from us. But without forgetting that the CAP's core objective is still the provision of food at affordable prices for consumers and ensuring a decent income for farmers. Again, agriculture is part of the solution of the Green Deal objectives, not the problem. Please keep this in mind during your discussions. Having said this, I wish you a fruitful conference and looking forward to your results.
So thank you very, very much to MEP Norbert Linz for laying out there the European Parliament's position. And it was heartwarming to hear him also say that, OK, there is compromise, there's conversations, there's huge ambition, but that he is optimistic about the way ahead. Now, before we dive into our next session, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Our graphic artist, Tonu, is very, very busy working hard behind the scenes to capture over the course of our conference some of the key messages and some of those feelings and thoughts that come from our speakers. So it would be great if we can take just a moment to check in with what Tonu has produced so far. I'm just going to see if the technicians can give you a little insight into that. I'm going to hang on a moment, see if we can cut to that. We might not be able to, but let's see. I'm not going to hang on. There we go. There indeed. There we go. So there you go. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's just a little whiff, a little teaser. What I need to let you know is, of course, in that fabulous 3D virtual gallery, you will also be able to catch up with the work of our fantastic graphic artist. And he is going to have his work cut out because this really is a content-rich event, and we have a awful lot of fertile ground to cover. So we are going to crack on with the first of 3 approximately 1-hour plenary sessions, which will take us through to the end of the day. You'll get a chance to grab a coffee between the second and third one.